Hi everyone, welcome to episode 11 of the Average Gamer podcast. As usual, I'm joined by show regulars Joe and Sully. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how 2017 could turn out to be one of the best years for video games. We're also going to be talking about Horizon Zero Dawn and Zelda reviews. Do they live up to them? And the final topic is the Switch launch and sales. The first subject is 2017 and the fact that it's already turning out to be one of the best years for video games, despite the fact it's only March. So if we look so far this year, we've had games like Resident Evil 7, Yakuza 0, Neo, Horizon Zero Dawn, Nier Automata has just come out, and these are all highly rated games. And of course, we just had the Switch release, and Zelda, which is currently sitting at 98 on Metacritic, which is an astonishing score.
Pretty good.
Considering. But I just wanted to say, the reason why I wanted to bring this up as a subject was because I think this sort of thing comes in cycles. I've just noticed there's certain years in video game history, if you look back, where every sort of 5 years or so, you get these really good years.
Mm-hmm.
And all these quality titles seem to appear at one time. I think we had... if you think of like 98 is considered to be a good year because you had Zelda Ocarina of Time.
2007.
2007 is another one that's
always talked about.
Cited as Uncharted released then, didn't it?
Yeah, you had Portal, Halo 3, like Orange Box.
Yep.
You had a huge amount of games that came out. It was ridiculous. I'm not doing that year justice with what I'm noting, but it was massive.
Christ, the Orange Box didn't sell
one.
that well either, which was a absolute nightmare. What a tragedy that was. Sorry.
Yeah.
Did it not? Sorry, how many? Because it was a lot of games in one, wasn't it?
It was
quite
yeah.
a few.
Yeah, it didn't sell as well as I think people were expecting, and which I thought was...
Yeah, it went on to sell well the content individually, though, through Steam, like Team Fortress and stuff.
Right.
But it was a really
like
good collection at the time.
Cause
So yeah, I mean, the fact that we're only at March and we've had a lot of really good exclusives and just generally sort of good quality releases already. I just wonder, considering we've still got certain games to look forward to, like, well, later in the year you've got Red Dead Redemption 2, which is obviously going to be a massive game, and then Sony's got some more exclusives, as if they haven't had enough already. We've got Persona 5 coming in, I think, April. We've got Mass Effect Andromeda, which is multi-platform, but is going to be an
Uncharted Story DLC as well. That'd be good.
Yeah, Uncharted Story DLC, and Xbox is going to obviously come up with a few. We've had Halo Wars 2, which is a big title for them. Yeah,
Xbox has some undetermined, probably big ones coming.
Oh God, let's hope so.
I just wonder what you guys think of the year so far, and do you think you could almost, come December we'll be talking?
Yeah, no,
we will be talking about it as a good year.
I think it will definitely be
a great year.
I mean, unless it just peepers off into the distance somewhere soon, around the middle of the year, I think we're going to have a really good year. Again, I can already see all the other popular podcasts like GameScoop going, is this year going to stack up against 2007? Because that was a massive year.
Yeah.
But I think you could almost go like, is this March like one of the best Marches or best months we've ever had for gaming? When you look at what's coming out, especially like RPG-wise, Zelda, Horizon Zero Dawn, Mass Effect. We've had that, I don't know how to pronounce it, Neo, I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say.
Well, you're talking about Nier Automata.
Yeah, and the Noah one, I sound like a grandpa, but the one you've been playing with God of 08.
Neo, yeah.
It's oh, sorry, that came out in February, but you know what I mean? Like, we've had a couple of intense, crazy months for RPGs, and they've all been good.
Personally, I mean, you made a good point, because one of the subjects I was considering for the cast was how the sort of the action RPG has become almost like the dominant genre in gaming. Because obviously we've talked in past episodes about how open worlds have become dominant, and it's not just open world, but it's a particular type of genre, isn't it? Like action role playing games. If you look at Horizon, that's an action role playing game. Nier Automata is an action role playing game.
One Japanese, one Western as well, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Neo is that's a third person action game. It's got RPG elements as well, because you've got crafting, etc. And then, of course, we're going to get Red Dead Redemption, which you could argue is sort of a role-playing game.
Yep.
As well,
Yeah.
you know, it's not a straight shooter by any means, but
It's bound to
I'm just
have
wondering-
like tech trees and skill trees and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
so-
exactly. Yeah, you've got upgrade trees. I mean, it's almost like games have hybridized a little bit into this kind of sort of middle, because action RPG. I think a lot of it's down to success of games like The Witcher 3. You know,
It's like everybody's going, well, we have to be open world. We have to have role-playing RPG elements, and it has turned into
exactly.
a hybrid. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even what Ubisoft is doing with like Ghost Recon is got a bit of that element to it
Funny,
as
I
well.
just
And
wrote down Ghost
Ubisoft.
Recon as well, actually.
Yeah, Wildlands.
Yeah, Wildlands. Exactly. You know,
Apparently that's
So
really fun too.
It's a bit of a change.
Is it? I
Sorry, go on,
don't
go on.
know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I considered buying it because, but I didn't know whether it was any good. I saw my nephew playing it when I went to visit him, and it was the beta, and it seemed okay.
I've heard good things about it.
I think you're right. I've been seeing it's been getting some good reviews, and I was quite surprised. You know, I thought Ghost Recon. I like the Ghost Recon games, and then when I saw Open World, it was like, you know, I'm of the opinion that whatever the genre is, we don't want to just have one genre. We've kind of discussed this before. But it's kind of weird because it used to be that my mate was really into these kind of role-playing games, and we always used to joke about him sitting around in his office wearing a tutu hitting gophers over the head with a stick. You know, you know, it used to be that he'd come up every so often, he'd bring me a game and say, oh, you've got to play this, and you'd spend like 6-7 hours wandering around doing virtually nothing, trying to get your stats up so you could actually go and do something. And I used to find it interminably boring. And so did most gamers, I think. They found a lot of that kind of stuff quite boring. It was quite a niche market. But that area now has expanded, and it's taken over, well, like you say, it's taken over nearly everything.
I think the thing is, what you got to remember now is that what you're talking about, I think role playing in video games used to be more like pen and paper role playing, but I think what's happened is because the genre's become more mainstream, they've kind of watered down the RPG elements to make them more palatable to people that play mainstream games. So I think even though they're role playing games, they're sort of quite simple, and they're not sort of, because I think there's this sort of fear that if you just translated the pen and paper role playing elements, people would find them too boring because they're too sort of I don't know, specialized or something for people. That
is it boring or people's lack of imagination? Because fun fact, I actually Dungeons and Dragons every second Sunday. And
I used to do it. I used to do it for years.
Yeah, like we've rolled people in before that either get it or they don't. And my personal opinion is some people are just kind of shut off, like they need it put in front of them, kind of thing, which you don't get that with Dungeons and Dragons.
I got put off Dungeons and Dragons by the fact that one of the guys I used to play pool with, who was a little bit odd, used to be a big D&D fan, and he talked me into going along to Dungeons and Dragons, and I turned up to this Dungeons and Dragons meet at one of his friends' houses.
It's going to get weird, isn't it?
And well, these guys were all like members of Mensa, and they were all like, you know, slightly wonky eyes, and you know, and it was a really strange experience. And you know, it probably didn't help that I was the only person there who was drunk, so that probably didn't help much. But it was a very, very weird experience. It was like going into some sort of surreal movie or something, and I really didn't fit in that crowd. And
Did you take
put me in
drugs?
mind of, I used to make models years ago, and it put me in mind of the wargamers. You know, they're all kind of a little bit adenoidal, and
I think, to be honest, I think you had a bad experience, because I mean, I did play D&D. We played AD&D and Call of Cthulhu, which is based on the Lovecraft, and I played with relatively normal people. I mean, a couple of them you could say were a bit socially strange, should we say. They had some odd, endearing characteristics. But
one of my best mates was into all that kind
normal
of stuff, but it's just this particular experience. And I do think that's true of a lot of things. Your first experience often will, you know, have an effect on the way you look at it, you know, for a lot, you know, as time goes on.
I think that's where I got lucky. I think it's probably lucky because I started playing with people that are just like me, normal gamers who wanted to try it out, and we kind of learnt together and progressed from there. Yeah.
I think you're right though, Sully. I mean, I think it is due to lack of imagination that gaming has kind of watered down the RPG elements, because I think there's been this assumption that people can't use their imagination because they expect to see games that are sort of graphically more impressive, with every sort of passing year. So, there's less left to the imagination because you can present.
They want to put in front of them rather than them leading themselves through it,
Exactly. I mean, I used to play text adventures. You had to use your imagination because you were reading someone describing a scene. So you didn't have any choice. I know that was because of the technical limitations of the machines that you were playing them on. But I think it was good because it was the same principle as tabletop gaming. You were forced to sort of imagine the scene in front of you.
Do you think that gaming's missing a trick though? Because if you look at where television's going at the moment, it's kind of opened up and it has become much broader and much more imaginative, and it's treating its audience as having an intellect. And
it is actually. I think you're right. There is a trend in TV that is quite good actually at the moment.
And I think though, if gaming did that a little bit more, and I, maybe not my personal taste with the RPG elements, I do find it's the gaming for accountants element of it that I don't like. The constant kind of up in your numbers that I find a bit tedious.
I think you're more talking about what I would consider MMO sort of territory, because that's more about grinding out better gear and this eternal loop of like carrot on a stick gameplay like World of Warcraft does. And that's true. That is boring because having played MMOs for a few years, I mean, I played WoW for 3.5 years, and obviously it's changed now, but because now it's just like you don't have to do any grinding because everything's just there for you on a plate.
Gratification.
It's like a totally different game from the one that in 2004 when it started. And I think that's because of this trend. Again, there's a very obvious trend in gaming that's I think not good in one regard, because it's oversimplifying things that I think, like Sully said, you should use your imagination a bit more.
Do you also think as well, because I'm thinking careful what you wish for here, because I remember saying to my mate years ago when he was trying to get me into playing some of these games that I'll show a bit more interest when you sort out the shooting mechanics. And a lot of what happened in those games, the actual fighting and stuff, it was very different. And I was into shooters at the time, still am really, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I wanted something that I could actually control, and I was quite resistant to playing a game which would have a different approach. If you look at something like I don't know, say Knights of the Old Republic, which had a completely different approach to combat. And not everybody liked it. I wasn't, so keen on it as another friend of mine who was really, really into it and still loves that game to this day.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I hated the turn.
Pretty much.
I hated the turn-based combat.
I never got into that either.
But do you think that in a way, okay, you don't like that, I don't like that, none of us like that. But do you think this comes back to what we've discussed before about games, that we need that diversity in games, that whether you like a game that's that style of game or not, there will be someone out there who will. And we need that diversity.
We need it. And my fear is that yes, we've got all these great games this year, but if everything is going to condense into this one action RPG kind of big amorphous sort of genre, then that's gonna result in people maybe getting a bit bored, because they'll think, oh, I'm playing the same game again, I'm playing another Witcher 3 clone, or I'm playing another Horizon clone, because they'll look at Horizon and think, oh yeah, and Horizon borrows from other games itself. It does, we'll talk about it in a minute, but the trend, like you say, is not good if it's going to result in a lack of diversity with genres, because people want to have a choice of different things to play, I think, even in the mainstream and in the indie sphere.
Absolutely. But I mean, at one time it was the shooter, wasn't it? That was the go-to.
Last generation.
Yeah, and
shooter on Unreal Engine. That's all we got.
Exactly. And I mean, that suited me because I liked shooters. You know, I was a shooters and sports guy, really, I suppose.
Yeah.
With the occasional, other game thrown in for good measure. And I think the thing for me is, as well, as you get a bit older and your reactions, dull down a little bit. I can't play shooters. I can't play online shooters for love and the money these days. I'll get my arse handed to me on a plate by a 5-year-old,
Yeah, tell me about it.
Gotta drink more Ribena.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maybe put something in it. Yeah. But so your tastes change just through necessity, and also because your brain changes as well. Throughout your life, your brain's constantly changing. You find different things to be interested in, and so the games I would necessarily play now wouldn't necessarily be the games that I would have played, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I think that's true for all gamers. Anyone, some people get caught in a niche and they stay there for their entire lives. You get it with people with music; they only listen to one type of music or whatever. But most people do sort of change and listen to different things, and I think that's true with gaming as well. I think most gamers will get bored if all they get is the same thing over and over and over again. And sooner or later, it'll move on. We'll get something different coming along.
Yeah, I mean, I've just bought one of the games I mentioned that's just come out, Nier Automata, and one of the things that attracted me to it was it may be an open world game, but it's got something like 4 or 5 different genres of game within that open world. So it's like a shoot 'em up, it's an RPG, and it's a platform. It's got platforming sections, and it's also got apparently a text adventure in it. Right. So I was like, I really like that sort of stuff because it's good to see experimentation in like a major release, because it's a Japanese game. I think Japanese companies are still innovating a little bit more or taking a few risks maybe.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that. Yep.
Compared to like Western developers who think, this is a big budget game, got to do it this way, And I think we need that diversity. We need little sort of quirky things on the market as much as we need, the sort of standard shooters and RPGs. Definitely.
I want a steampunk futuristic Fable. I'm being serious though. Like I would actually.
I'm sure.
We're talking about all these action RPGs. Like, where is Fable? Like Fable kicked this off like on the original Xbox and 360, and it just got overtaken in a heartbeat. Every Fable that came after 2 and 3 was a shortcoming. I play Horizon Zero Dawn, and I kind of envision like Fable could have like almost been this like once upon a time, like maybe not quite on the same level, but almost like this open world Albion. And because I feel like I won't talk about Horizon too much, but I feel like Horizon is kind of this it's the wrong word, but like trimmed back kind of Elder Scrolls or Witcher game. Like it's not on the same scale, but everything you do is really honed and interesting. Do you know what I mean? It hasn't got a lot of the padding.
I mean, we can seamlessly sort of run into the next topic if you want, because you started talking about it. We were going to mention Horizon Zero Dawn and Zelda reviews. I mean, do you think that Horizon Zero Dawn? Do you think it's original enough to warrant the score that it's got, or do you think that doesn't matter?
I don't think originality matters. I think as long as it's good at what it's doing, then it can warrant that score. I mean, that's just. I
agree. I think if a game's good, a game's good. You know, I mean, every game is going to wear its influences. I think, quite apparently. If you look at someone like Kojima, I mean, he borrows heavily from other mediums like TV and film. Because that's how he rolls. That's how he works as like a creative artist. And I think people have, excuse me, they've pointed out Horizon. Is like copying a lot of other games. I'm like, well, sort of, but what it's doing is it's innovating on things that we've seen already. Like The Witcher's combat, it's quite similar to Horizon is quite similar to The Witcher, but it's like more refined. And you've got like the detective part where which is similar to Geralt's ability to use his Witcher senses. So there's a lot of comparisons, but I mean, I look at the reviews and I think, I pretty much agree with sort of almost every review I've read.
I'm giving it a 10. Like, straight up, for me, it's a 10.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close to one of the best games I've ever played. It's probably, and I'm not being melodramatic there, it is in my top 10 already, because it's just so incredibly well polished for a console game. You know, I've had no bugs that I've come across at all, not one single glitch or bug, you know, that I can see.
Did you not see the one that what's his name put up, which was quite funny? Oh god.
Oh, the glitching robot.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Oh no,
Sterling.
I did see that actually. Actually, that was quite funny. But you know, I've not come across that. But yeah, it was. He
did
funny.
qualify it and said
like
it was a good
video.
game. So you know.
Yeah, he liked it a lot, I think.
You know, I keep doing things like I'll fall into an area where I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't be in this spot right now. Like when you fall off the edge of something between a cliff and you go into like a man-made structure, you're like, oh man, I'm probably stuck. And no, I just wiggle my way out. Like I haven't had any issues whatsoever. It's funny because I played Elder Scrolls, obviously. I've played some Witcher. I've played all the big open world RPGs, and they never grabbed me the same way that Horizon has grabbed me.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. It's something about it. It's very honed. It knows what it is. It's all very bite-sized. There's nothing in there that isn't like boring or just doesn't grab you. Like you get that a lot of the time with Elder Scrolls and The Witcher. Like it's like they throw the kitchen sink at you. Like you don't get the kitchen sink in Horizon. You get what is interesting and honed. You know.
Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good point, because I remember getting Skyrim, like I played it quite intensely for like a couple of weeks, and then I dropped it like a stone. I just got bored of it.
Yeah, you do.
Because I looked at my quest log and I thought, I don't want to do that. But I don't have that. I don't have the same feeling with Horizon. There's always something I want to do because I want to be in that world.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to be exploring, even if I'm just going to like get one of the collectibles. It's still sort of like way more interesting to do that than in another game where I'd look at the collectibles or side quests and think, fuck that, you know. I'm not doing that.
This random person in this village in fucking Skyrim's child has wandered off.
Fallout 4.
Like, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah. I just want you to go to this village and this settlement and help them. Preston Garvey is like, shut up, Preston.
Yeah. Do you reckon though? Do you reckon it's the world building that keeps it interesting, or do you reckon it's the structure and the way they've achieved these quests and they've structured them, that they haven't got all this padding? Or is it a combination of everything that is Horizon Zero Dawn that makes it like all these quests and bite-sized missions kind of so appealing?
That's a good question. I think a lot of the elements sort of seamlessly flow into one another. They have this sort of cohesiveness that you don't get in a lot of games. I think what I would say is the side quests are genuinely quite interesting. And they're usually worth doing. And when you compare that to some other games, I mean, the obvious comparison is to The Witcher 3 and like the contracts. You know, they have a backstory to them and they're well written in The Witcher. And it's the same. It's a similar thing in Horizon. I would say that just sort of based on the fact that I finished The Witcher and almost finished like both expansions, I would say The Witcher 3's writing is slightly better than Horizon's. I think there's a little bit more meat sort of to the story, like Geralt. But having said that, Horizon, the world building is exceptional. It has a kind of atmosphere and sense of immersion that I haven't really had from any other open world game that I can think of. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, Fallout 4 I like a lot because I feel the world is really well done. But to be honest, it's not a patch on Horizon. You know, it's Horizon is like it's looked at other games and it's just taken it to like the next level.
Do you think? I've got a question for you, right? Obviously, you have Elder Scrolls, you have Fallout. You've got all these other The Witcher. You've got all these other big RPGs that I think appeal to that RPG enthusiast market, right? And people like me who are kind of like the idea of it, I'm interested in it, but it doesn't hold my attention. Is Horizon Zero Dawn the mainstream formula for RPGs or open world games?
In a word, I think yes.
Yeah, have they just captured it? You know, is this it?
I think so. I think the reason why it's attracting people who probably wouldn't normally play RPGs or wouldn't normally play open world games.
Fucking Ribena.
Yeah, he invited him on the podcast.
Wait till I get me cereal out in a minute.
Yeah, exactly. I just think they have captured something that appeals to people outside of like RPGs and who wouldn't normally play them, because it's got something that draws people in. It's got that magic ingredient. It's the same magic ingredient that you have maybe when you're in the zone playing like a Mario game or something.
You can't put your finger on it though. It's the combination.
No, it's hard to quantify.
Yeah,
but I think it is the combination of all these different elements. They just work really well together, and I think what they've done is quite an achievement with Horizon. I think they've just created an incredibly well polished game, that just works on so many different levels. And the only the slight criticism I would have is that some of the characters sound like they've got something stuffed up their arse when they
they're
speak.
a little bit dry.
They're a bit like, and it's a little bit wooden. And sometimes you think the writing could be a bit better, but then it does get better the further you get into the story, I think.
Yeah,
so,
I agree with that. Yeah, like that.
It's not perfect, but it's pretty damn close, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not bad for like an open world RPG game, like the voice acting.
Yeah,
they got to voice so many characters. You can't just go and get Nolan North for every freaking part.
Exactly, Troy Baker. Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, they could definitely improve in those areas, but it's a pretty small criticism. I mean, the only thing that ever I get kind of peeved off about is the response time between when you jump in a body of water and her actually clicking over to the fast swim mode. That is literally my only criticism with the game.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It feels a bit sluggish.
That's the thing, though, isn't it? Swimming in games is generally pretty shit.
Yeah.
I mean, in my experience, it's frustrating. I mean, ever since I tried to control Lara Croft in the Tomb Raider games underwater, I just think this is fucking... you get one of those timed sections you have to do, and you can't even bloody control her properly. So I'm thinking, they're having a laugh putting this in. It's like you've got like...
No, go over there!
You eventually do it.
There. Sorry.
It's like...
I'm getting a flashback.
It's like, yeah, you're exactly right. It's like on the 20th attempt, eventually you do it with like half a second to spare just by sheer persistence. But I just think that swimming in games generally is just frustrating. I mean, even Geralt's a bit difficult to control sometimes.
Just one of the things I actually really do love about Horizon in comparison to other RPGs, though, is when you play a game like Elder Scrolls, you find like some dwarven ruin and you go into it and it's some kind of old ass ruin and you find some kind of collectibles and shit in there. In Horizon, there's like this other world layered on. They live in this post-apocalyptic world that's pushed forward into the future, and all these old ruins are like from literally another time in a previous human existence. You go and you find these laboratories that are complete contrast to the topside world, and you find like all these...
I know.
It's something about it. Like it's...
And I think that's part of the charm, isn't it? Is the contrast between the old and the new. Yeah. I think they've tried to put in this tribal society with this sort of weird technology that they don't quite understand, and then they find these ruins. I think the difference between Horizon and something like Skyrim, you can really see a noticeable difference in the years that they were developed and made, because Skyrim is very much a last generation game because it repeats a lot of textures. So if you go into dungeons, it uses a lot of the same textures. The amount of times I walked through the same fucking crypt full of skeletons in Skyrim and thought, oh my god, this looks identical to the last one, because they've reused assets.
Yeah.
And yet in Horizon, despite it being a console game, they don't reuse assets. They
haven't thrown the kitchen sink at you. They've taken this bite-sized kind of world and they've fleshed it out with interesting stuff. I'll never forget, like, it was a couple of days ago, like I fell into some old ruin, and again, it's from the previous human world. And I went from like all these kind of foliage upstairs to like actual animals and fucking boars running around, and I fell into this hole and I kind of trekked through it a little bit. And I saw this suit of armor like lit up, like it's like I'd walked into a cutscene out of Halo 5. I'm like, is that a Spartan armor? I'm like, what? Like, it's just mind-boggling. I love it.
I did the same as you. I found that by accident, and in exactly the same spot. And it was early on in the game, and I thought, wow, that was the sort of thing that made me really fall in love with the game, because I love stuff like that. World. Yeah, I love the contrast that they do between like the outer and the sort of inner world, and I think that's quite clever. But I'm just wondering, I mean, obviously it's very different to a game like Zelda, but I'm just wondering, sort of looking at it from a review perspective, I mean, Zelda, according to, if you believe Metacritic, is a better game than Horizon.
Yeah, I kind of wish I'd played some Horizon, because I don't actually own it yet, and you guys have just sold it on me to me even more. And I do intend
I think you'd
to play
love it, honestly.
I think I would, because the way you've described it is the sort of RPG for people like me who don't really like RPGs in a way.
Yeah, that's me, Joe. Yeah, 100% me. I love it.
And I'm fine with RPGs up to a point. I never finish them because there's just too much, as you say, repetition.
They get tedious.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And if this has got kind of honed that down and focused it and made it a bit more, directed.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Altano on IGN said he finished it in 20 hours, and you can finish Horizon in 20 hours if you don't do all of the side quests and get the collectibles. So it is kind of designed for people that don't have the time for an open world game.
I'm like that, but I've still been doing all the extra stuff. I've still been doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I have.
It's interesting and it's good.
I've been doing it because I've got the time, and I like the world so much. I want to collect all the stuff and do all the side quests. But but the point is, you don't have to, and it's a compromise if you don't have the time.
Yeah, I mean, in my book, just to put a full stop on Horizon, I think it's deserving of all the reviews it's getting. For me, it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you. I just think it's an incredible game. Honestly, it's the best PS4 exclusive so far by quite some distance. It's better than Uncharted 4.
That's high praise indeed.
It is better than Uncharted 4, I think.
Yeah, it's like apples and oranges, but yeah, I'd say I'm probably enjoying it more.
Uncharted 4 is a great game, don't get me wrong. I loved Uncharted 4. I thought the combat and everything was fantastic in that game, but Horizon's just got something that has kept me interested longer than I thought I would.
It's interesting.
I think both those games know exactly what they are and what they're doing, but the Horizon formula is just more engaging.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because there are people who I've spoken to who, for some reason or other, really don't like Uncharted. And they hate it. And I was wondering, can you envisage there will be people out there who hate Horizon? Because I think there are always and there are people out there who will hate it just because a lot of people like it. But I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about someone who genuinely picks the game up, wanting to like it, and then just doesn't get on with it.
I can imagine there would be. I mean, there's a guy on Clay's Discord, isn't there? That Oreo Cookie. He said he doesn't like the story, or he doesn't like the characters. I think he said.
Yeah, fair criticism.
He said, that's fair enough. I think the problem with Uncharted, going back to what you were saying, is the reason why I think people don't like Uncharted, and I get this totally, by the way, as a criticism, is because it's too narrative heavy in places.
Yeah,
it doesn't have. It has these long stretches where you don't have control of the character. Cutscene. Yeah, and some people just do not like that. They just skip cutscenes because
I love it.
Funny, isn't it? Because I used to hate stuff like that, and I really like it now. And I think that comes back to the fact of I need a rest. Give me a rest.
Exactly, I like it because it breaks up the action. I'm exactly the same as you, but I mean, in Horizon, there's not much of that apart from when you're talking to people for quests. It's like they're quite short. They're very short in comparison to Uncharted. It's like, I mean, it's not. Uncharted again has got nothing on Metal Gear, like the old Metal Gear Solid games, which had 40-minute cutscenes, whatever they were. So I can understand people not liking Uncharted. I think they're less likely to not like Horizon, but I'm sure there's plenty of people that wouldn't like Horizon either.
Yeah,
because they just don't.
Yeah, I think
gel
I could
with it,
totally see like a diehard purist RPG lover just not clicking with it. Like maybe there's just not enough there for him,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few Witcher fanboys that have sort of said, "Oh, it's not as good as The Witcher," but that's not really a criticism. It's just like your preference, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tell us about Zelda, Joe.
Well,
is it, in your opinion, so far? How's it stacking up to the reviews?
Fairly well. I definitely don't think it's a 10 out of 10. I think there's too many things with it that would hold it back from a technical perspective. You know, when I first I'll lay it out for you. When I first put it in and I first started playing it, and this was handheld as well, and I've since played it on the TV screen. And you know, the I don't know if you saw this, but Digital Foundry did a thing on it, and they were talking about how it looks softer when you play it on TV. And you know, it's
the resolution.
Yeah, and also the frame rate drops more when you're playing it on TV. So in effect, it's actually a better experience handheld. And
is it 1080p on TV? Is it
no 900?
It's 900p.
900p,
Yeah.
And it's actually struggling to make 30 frames per second as well.
Well, you're running it at native resolution in 720p on a 720p display on the handheld, and then your 900p on a 1080p TV.
Yeah.
You know, that's why it looks softer. It's upscaling.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So when I first put the game in, I'm playing it handheld, so it was going to be crisper there because it's native resolution and all the rest of it. And my first impression was not good, I have to say, because I looked at it and I thought, this looks shit. I really did. I looked at it and I thought, this looks shit. The way the first, you know, you're in this cave and you wake up and it's Link wake up and there's this woman, bit sort of sub Lord of the Rings kind of vocal talking, and you wake up and
you must go to Gondor.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of it is just like that, and you go up and you get your Switch, which he's carrying, because obviously a bit of marketing there. They're trying to get you to buy the Switch by getting you to play using the Switch while you're actually playing on the Switch. So anyway. So then you start to go up and you get to this rock and you climb over the rock, and then you go out and you see the light and you walk out, and then everything changes. Because the minute you walk outside, it is gorgeous. Really, it's like going out into a painting, and it is absolutely beautiful. And then I started to think, okay, this is going to be good. You know, at least on you know, from a art perspective, it's going to be enjoyable just to look at the scenery, if nothing else. And I could quite happily wander around in the environment all day. You know, apart from the fact that every time you're walking around in the environment, every few minutes, some skeleton or something crawls out of the ground and attacks you. But
I was going to ask about that. Is it so you endanger a lot of the time, because the clips I've seen that you can run out of stamina and things like that as well.
You can, yeah.
When you're doing stuff.
If you climb cliffs or you run out of stamina. I think, you know, some of the actual gameplay elements of it I really like. The walking down. You come out your cave, you walk down, and this is still on the Great Plateau or whatever they call it, you know, early on. And you're walking down, and you see there's some, like, a tree with some apples. So you can climb the tree. And every fucking tree in the game you can climb. You know, virtually everything you see that's, you know, you can climb it. Anything. If you want to climb it, you can go and climb it. And I love that element of the game. That's really, really nice. And like I say, it does. I'm looking at a still of it here, and it's quite breathtaking. The art design in the game is just stunning. But then you come back to, you go down this, you walk down the road, you've got your apples, and there's this guy sat by the fire, and then you look at him, and then again, for me, and this is not going to be true for everybody, but for me, I'm kind of pulled back a bit again, because I look at him, and the character model there is, it's very, you compare it to Horizon Zero Dawn, and I've seen stills from Horizon Zero Dawn, and obviously, moving images aren't quite the same as stills, but you can get a kind of rough idea. The character models in something like Horizon Zero Dawn are a different league to the character models in Zelda.
Yeah, they are. But in fairness, Zelda's going for a very artistic, deliberate look, isn't it? Horizon's photorealistic.
Yes,
almost.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So you're talking apples and oranges in a way. But I in a way, it's, for me, it's like, well, I know that the art style kind of, it's a bit like, you know, is it Cinema Ghibli or something like that? It's got
Studio Ghibli,
Ghibli, and it's got a very distinctive style. But I find with that, I really like the backdrops in that. I really like the scenery in that. But again, I don't quite like the characters so much. I find them a bit odd.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of effect this has on me. I love the scene. And when I was looking at for the reviews, when we were talking about doing this earlier on, I looked at the reviews and somebody said, that the central character in Zelda is the environment. And for me, that's it. It's all about the environment.
Interesting.
It's
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of the reason why, I mean, just from my sort of take on it, from what I've read of the reviews, a lot of the reasons why it's getting these high scores is because it has a lot of opportunity for what people call emergent gameplay, where you can you can solve puzzles and things using the environment. And I think that sort of clever use of the open world and sort of linking to what you were saying about the environment being the main character, I think that kind of innovation is probably why it's scoring so highly. That would be my guess anyway. Because a lot of it, I mean, there's a lot of content in it as well. I mean, I think it's probably, I mean, Horizon's not particularly big, just as a comparison. It's not a particularly big map, but a Zelda apparently has all these dungeons and
oh god, I've only scratched the surface. I've not even begun to scratch the surface. But
I think it's like the clips I've seen where people have used these environmental tricks, like they'd be on this paraglider thing and they're firing the arrow and they'd be knocking something over in order to kill these enemies, and it's quite clever. But I wonder if that's the reason why it's been getting, quite high scores.
Yeah. You see, I agree with, is it Jim Sterling that we were talking about earlier on? I forgot his name earlier. I remember it now. I agree with him when he says that, when you're doing a review of the game, you should be taking into account the technical aspects of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that while I do think there are some amazing elements in this game, and not least the artwork, which I keep harping back to, and I literally could stand in the environment for half an hour at a time, just looking at it and doing nothing, because it's like a painting. It just is beautiful, but there are technical issues with the game, and some of them are to do with the Switch itself, and some of them are to do with the fact that regardless of what some people might say, it is a port from the Wii U. It was originally designed for the Wii U. And
do you think that's holding it back a bit? Do you think that's holding the game back?
and God of 08 said this the other day, that he thinks that actually the Switch will show its mettle more when you get games designed specifically for it. Now, I don't know whether that's true as yet, but I do think that Zelda, to some extent, it's showing its age in some respects. The fact is the art style is gorgeous, but the art style probably still looks gorgeous on the Wii U. Let's be honest. And if a game is struggling to reach 30 frames per second, it needs to be taken into account when you're doing the review.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think if you're going to score a game 10 out of 10, and it still has frame rate issues, I guess those frame rate issues would have to be something that doesn't really happen very much. I mean, have you noticed any slowdown in the game yourself?
Not particularly. I think once I had a bit of a stutter. That's about it, really. But it feels fairly smooth most of the time to me, if I'm being honest. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it's probably not that big of an issue then. Generally, maybe.
I think maybe some people notice it more than others, and like I say, I've not scratched the surface with the game, so I don't know whether I've had a few fights and stuff, and it's got a bit frenetic in a couple of places, but I don't know if when you get into it more later on in the game and there's a lot more going on screen, whether it would come into it more then.
Yeah, that would worry me.
Yeah,
that would be a test, wouldn't it?
Exactly, and so, but I the problem for me is, and this isn't at all related directly to Zelda. I think this goes to game reviewing. That when I'm talking about this game now, I'm saying that I haven't scratched the surface of this game. I don't really know at this stage. I can only make assumptions based on what I've seen so far. And the problem for me is I think a lot of reviewers, they do their review, and I wonder sometimes if they actually finished the bloody game.
Yeah, they're trying to beat the clock, aren't they?
Exactly, yeah.
Just from my experience, I mean, it's probably different now, but when I was reviewing games, I certainly knew of reviewers, and in fact, I knew of one guy who reviewed a game, and he literally only played it for about an hour because he said it was so shit that if he carried on playing it, he'd just stick his head in the microwave or something. But I mean, that's just an extreme example, but I know for a fact that they don't always finish games. I mean, I know that some on the bigger sites, maybe like GameSpot or IGN, they have to finish the game.
Yeah.
Because just as an example, the guy it's actually a woman that reviewed Neo for IGN. She finished the game in she said 60 or 70 hours, and they gave it to her to review. Yeah, because she was very good at the Souls games. And it's so a lot of the bigger sites, they will finish the games, but not all reviewers will, and they won't tell you.
I think that's the thing around the edges, and
they won't always tell you. Yeah,
yeah.
But they'll hide it because they'll only talk about a certain portion of the game. Maybe
I don't necessarily mind if someone hasn't finished, as long as they say they haven't.
Yes.
Because
I think there has to be an honesty, doesn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And I have a problem sometimes with trusting some of these sites and what's said, because I remember a game years ago. I can't remember what it was called now. I think I mentioned it the other week as well. And it was getting really good reviews. And when I bought it to play it, it was utterly broken. It was unplayable almost. In places, it was literally unplayable. And it was getting good reviews, and I thought to myself, I'm not that far into this game and I've noticed this stuff already. How can you possibly be giving it these reviews?
Yeah, exactly. If you're noticing it, straight away.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think Zelda and the Switch are just getting a bit of not a pass, but they're getting a bit of a light hand at the moment, considering it's a brand new system, it's just launched. People are excusing the technical issues with Zelda because it could just be the hardware and not the game.
Well, it's funny actually, because it's a difficult one for me on this, because I was looking at the reviews of Zelda and I was listening to some people going on about the reviews of the hardware, and some of the reviews of the hardware hadn't been all that great. They'd been okay, but they weren't great. And
I think IGN gave it a 7 or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say that's probably quite generous, really, from what I've seen so far. Well, given what it's offering at the moment, a year down the line, it might be a different story. But there's nothing on there. So from a hardware perspective, it's got hardware issues. The Joy-Cons have ergonomic issues, which I talked about in that, the Pro Controller thing that I did earlier. It's got these issues. It hasn't got a lot of the content that you've got on the other platforms, and I'm not talking just games here. I'm talking things like Netflix and all the other stuff. And Nintendo are saying, this stuff might. They haven't even said it will. It might be coming down the line. So in effect, you're buying a system and you're beta testing it, really. At this stage.
Yeah,
by the way, Grant, I think we've transitioned into our last topic where Joe...
Yeah, I was just about to say that, actually. You probably have. One thing I was going to say, just... it would be... I'm not making any accusations here, but I would be interested in correlating the people that gave Zelda like a 10 out of 10 and seeing how many of them are Nintendo preferred partners.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
I don't want to be cynical, but I would be interested to see, because the preferred partners, they get a free Switch. They sometimes get more than one, actually. And I'm wondering how many of them gave Zelda like the highest possible accolade, and how many of them were preferred partners. I think it would be interesting. That's all I'm going to say.
I think it will be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always thought, I'll be straight up, I've always thought there's been something that hasn't smelt quite right about all these Zelda reviews.
I agree. I don't think they're right. I really don't think. I think they're... I'm not going to say they're bought reviews because there's no proof.
I think they're influenced.
But they might be influenced. Well, the reviewer might feel obliged to give Nintendo, because they only give certain companies preferred status. That's what you've got to remember.
Yeah. And
there might be a correlation.
It's going to be interesting to see how Zelda stacks up 12 months from now when your entire user base has had gone plenty of hands-on time with it. I think its rating's just going to continue to drop. I just can't see it.
Well, from what I've seen of it so far, I don't think it's a bad game.
No.
But I don't think it's a 10 out of 10. I think a 10 out of 10's a rarity. I mean, we've had this discussion on Discord, and I'm probably a little more reluctant to give a 10 out of 10 than you two.
No, I understand that. Yeah, you've said the reasons why.
Yeah,
I get them. Yeah,
but even if I was being a lot more generous, I still don't think that I would be able to score it a 10 out of 10 for the reasons I gave earlier.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me to note that I was looking at some of the more happy clappy, rejects from the Moonies going on about Zelda and then going on about the Switch itself. And on the one hand, they're moaning about the reviews of the Switch, and then they're, praising the reviews of Zelda, some of which are coming out of the same organisations. And you're thinking, well, you can't kind of have it both ways. If you think that the review is absolutely spot on of the game, you can't then turn around and say that you think the review of the hardware is completely out of whack. I think, probably if you look at the reviews of the game and you look at the reviews of the hardware and you mix them both up and take a mean, you probably get somewhere around the truth,
I think you're probably right. I mean, just sort of tying it into the last subject, because you wanted to talk about the sales and the launch week. Has it been a success, and what criteria do we judge it as a success? Because Nintendo might see a success differently to everyone else. I suppose there's this argument for the fact that they limit stock, and there's only 2 million Switches out there apparently at the moment. So if they sell out, they might say, "Oh, look, it's a success." But is it a success?
It's a difficult one to gauge at this stage. I was trying to work out the figures the other day, and I kind of arrived at some tentative ones. The most concrete figures we've got, or at the moment that I've seen, were the UK figures. And the first weekend sales of the Switch in the UK were 80,000. So
did everyone buy Zelda? I think the figures almost are suggesting that everyone bought Zelda with the Switch.
Pretty much.
What else is there?
Pretty much. Yeah.
When I say 80,000, I'm talking.
I know exactly. There isn't anything else.
When I say 80,000, that is for the Switch itself. And
yes,
I'm not.
Okay.
I didn't. You mentioned, I think, the figures for Zelda. I haven't seen the figures for Zelda apart from when you mentioned it the other day, and I can't remember what they were.
The reason why, I think one site mentioned that pretty much there was a 1-to-1 purchase ratio with Zelda and the Switch.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah,
it is the only game worth buying for the system.
But somebody mentioned they didn't give an exact figure, but somebody mentioned that Horizon had done roughly, but not quite double the sales of Zelda.
Yeah, you said something like 140,000, didn't you? Something like that.
Yeah, I think I said like 155. It was like that was a guesstimate that somebody said on one site. They didn't have exact figures, but because they worked it out based on like the sales proportions of like which of the games which charted in the different positions. So Zelda sold 80,000 and went in at number 2, and then one site said Horizon was double the sales.
But this goes
just under.
This plays into what you were saying about earlier on about the when people are given preferred status, and you go on some of the sites, and I was talking to you on Discord about this, where some guy's saying that that Zelda completely blitzed Horizon Zero Dawn in terms of sales. And and then you gave me the figures, and I was just giggling to myself, because it's like, this guy's just, I don't know where he's pulling it from. He's just making it up.
Maybe day one sales compared to Horizon's day one sales.
Yeah, I mean,
it's impossible because PS4 has an insane install base.
Exactly,
it's never going to
exactly. That's what Grant said as well, and that you've got to take that into account. I mean, come on.
I mean, you have to really. And also, I mean, Horizon had a 2-day head start on Zelda, which might have affected its sales. It was released on the 1st of March, I think. But even so, it's like we say, it has a massive install base. It would be a surprise if it didn't outsell Zelda for that reason alone, I mean, I don't know what the worldwide figures were, but
we just need to wade through and cut through all the fanboy dreaming blah 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 bullshit.
Yeah,
and you arrive at the other end, and you're just left with here's a 50 million install base versus fuck all for the Switch. Do the math.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
you know, and at this stage, we can't absolutely say that, you know, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the line, the Switch isn't going to have a much bigger install base. I would guess it's not going to be anywhere near the PS4, and I would also hazard a guess that it's not even going to be up to the Xbox One. I think Scorpio's going to give the Xbox One a boost at Christmas, assuming there's some bloody games to play on the fucking thing, but...
Well, I mean, my guess would be that it does slightly better than the Wii U, and I would
that's say the same.
14 million. I think it might hit 20 million.
Well, if you look at opening sales, I don't think opening sales really tell you very much, to be honest.
No, I don't think they do.
But if you look at the opening sales for the Wii U, it was in the UK. It was 80,000 in the first weekend, so it's double that for the Switch. In the US. Apparently, it's difficult with that one because, you know, Reggie's coming out and saying they've had the best opening weekend ever for one of their consoles. And
compared to the NES as well?
Well, it said according to them, it outsold the Wii in the first 2 days, which is their best.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. Well, yeah, but they didn't give any figures. That's the thing that gets me.
No.
Yeah, it could just be bullshit.
Exactly.
Exactly.
You know, and then, you know, then I start looking at sales for other consoles over the same sort of period. And, you know, everyone's crowing on about 80,000 in the UK, and it's done really well in the States, but there's no actual numbers. And then you look at the opening weekend sales for the PS4 in the US was 1 million. You know, and the opening sales for it in the UK were 250,000. You know, by anyone's maths, that's significantly more than what the Switch is managing. And like I say, it depends how you compare it. Are you going to compare it against the Wii and the Wii U, or are you going to compare it against, you know, the competition? And I think it's probably better to compare it against the competition if you want to see where you're going. Because apart from anything else, we live in a different world now. And despite what people have said about consoles not going to be selling as well, consoles are actually selling better than they ever have. Or they seem to be at the moment.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, despite this people saying like in 2010, 11, 12, console gaming's dead. That was it, wasn't it? Mobile was going to take over. It's like bullshit.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
You know, it's like the worst prediction ever.
I never believed that. I never believed that.
It would be interesting to see when at the Switch launch, it'd be interesting to see how many PS4s and Xbox Ones were sold in the same week, because there's so many deals on, especially in the UK. There's so many deals on the PS4 and Xbox One at the moment. I mean, you can get, as I said, you can get 2 games and an extra controller and a PS4 for £199, which is like £100 cheaper than the Switch.
Yeah.
So I bet you, if they release sales, I bet you the PS4 outsold the Switch even on the opening week.
That'd be interesting to see. I think the other thing as well is I think most of the sales of the Switch were pre-orders. I would have, you know, I mean, you know, it's a no-brainer really to suggest that.
Yeah.
But I would say that you may find that, you know, people are going in to buy a Switch in store. Nintendo, you know, you know, you don't want to push this too far, but Nintendo may be shooting themselves in the foot by, if they are doing this, by holding back consoles to, you know, generate interest. Because if someone's going into Game or GameStop or wherever it might be to look to buy a Switch and there's not one on sale, and there's a PS4 or the PS4 Pro on a really good deal, and it's actually coming in under what the price of the Switch is, and you're getting a couple of games thrown in for good measure and an extra controller, you know, a lot of people are going to go,
well, they were doing
shit, that's a good deal.
Well, they were doing the PS4 Pro and a copy of Horizon for £329 in some places, which is only fractionally more than the Switch. I mean, PS4, let's be honest, is heading towards PS2 sales figures.
Oh, it is.
It's on track.
Yeah, it's actually selling better at this stage of, you know, of the console generation, isn't it? It's actually, if it carries on selling at the same rate, it's going to overtake the PS2.
I think time's going to beat it. I think the generation's just going to get cut off when we have PS5 before it gets a chance.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that's the thing. That's what people have said. The only, you know, the likelihood is that Sony will kill it by releasing a new console, or they'll just sort of draw a line in the sand and say, right, okay, the PS5's coming out now. I think the blip with the Switch, I think you'll see a little blip in sales figures for March because of the release of the Switch. It'd be interesting to see what happens with Scorpio when that's released as well, and whether it can get any momentum in comparison to like the Switch and and how it compares to PS4.
Well, we've said this.
I think it's.
Sorry, go on, Grant.
I think it's an interesting year. I know we've discussed this before, but it's. Well, it'll be interesting to see.
With Scorpio, it's two things, isn't it? It's price and it's content. If Scorpio launches at a decent price with good content, it'll sell really well.
Yeah, that's the formula. Yeah.
Assuming that it delivers on what they're
buying one.
Sorry, Sully.
So I was going to say I wasn't going to buy one unless obviously they dropped that crazy system-selling bombshell. But I'm thinking about buying one now that we have the Xbox Game Pass. Like, I want to get back into Xbox, and I want to do it in the on new hardware that's capable.
Well, I mean, I'm going to hang on to my Xbox One purely because of something like Game Pass. I think it's a great idea. I don't want to get rid of it now because I think it's it's breathing new life into the console.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's a great idea, as we've discussed.
So slightly off topic though, somebody said something interesting today, or I don't know where I read this, whether it was on my own YouTube or where it was that I read it, but somebody was trying to say that the Xbox One was the I think it was Phil Spencer said something about the Xbox One being the most successful Xbox, and somebody was saying that's rubbish because the 360 was the high point of the Xbox. And
it was 50 million plus, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, not just in terms of sales, but also in terms of what it offered in terms of games, in terms of the stuff that it gave above and beyond what the PS3 offered. Certainly early on, the PS3 caught up later on.
I think they're looking purely at sales because the Xbox One is, I still believe, outpacing the 360 sales.
It is, and if you're talking about it from a sales perspective, if you take the PS4 out of the equation, I know that's a stupid thing to do, but just for a minute, assume that you can take the PS4 out of the equation. The Xbox One's actually doing really well.
It's doing quite well. Yeah, it is doing fairly well. It's not. It's
fairly
not a
well.
failure
It's actually fairer than what I said. So
it's not. It just looks like a failure when you compare it to the PS4. But like you say, if you took it out of the equation, it's actually doing pretty well.
Considering they have stuff all to sell. Yeah,
considering they absolutely messed up the launch. Let's be honest.
There's still people who won't buy it because they believe things that were said during the launch, aren't there? I mean, I've had people talking to me and saying stuff like, can you buy secondhand games and shit like this? I mean, let's put it this way. Right, when I went to decide to buy a console in May 2015, I had this thing in the back of my head and I didn't know where it came from, where someone said, oh, the Xbox One isn't very good for games. And that influenced me slightly when I went to buy. I mean, it was also partly because I knew I could use my PSN account with the PS4, so it was like a seamless process. Yeah. But it's in the back of your mind. It's a subconscious thing because someone's told you something about the Xbox One and it sort of lodged there in my head, and I thought, well, I better get a PS4 then instead. So it's like these little things do influence people's buying decisions. What you said there though about it being a seamless process, it's like the incumbent thing in an election. The idea that
exactly.
But that actually is quite damning against the Xbox, because when you consider the number of people who jumped ship, it would have been so much easier to have stuck with the Xbox moving from the 360 into the Xbox One in terms of keeping your accounts and all the rest of it. And two of my mates, who one of them was a big Xbox guy, he really loved Xbox. Just after that reveal or whatever it was they did, it was like, nah, fuck them, I'm not buying one. And he still to this day hasn't bought an Xbox One.
That's exactly what I was like.
Fair enough.
PS4 is my primary platform now, and it's only up until I did buy one, but that was for Halo.
Yeah. I mean, I did both. I ordered. I was like, I ordered the PS4 and the Xbox One pretty much at the same time, with the intention of cancelling one of them when I knew a bit more. and then I never cancelled.
You bought both.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I kept my Xbox as well, and it's been good to have both platforms available and have But I mean, this year really so far has been a bit of a dud. Well, we keep saying this, been a bit of a dud for the Xbox, and when you compare it again against the PS4 with the stuff that's coming out with Horizon and all the other stuff that's on the way, they really do. I mean, we keep saying this, but they really do have to deliver some games. I think E3's
They've
crucial.
got to announce something. Yeah.
E3's crucial.
Yeah.
Where are their new IPs? Like, what are they doing?
Well,
exactly. Yeah. Sony are bringing out new IPs, but why aren't Xbox doing the same?
Microsoft have a bottomless wallet. Like, I don't care. Open some new studios. Start brainstorming some new IPs. Buy some studios. Just get some
resurrect
IPs.
one.
That was something.
Yeah, resurrect a
Sorry, go on.
360 IP. I was going to say resurrect a 360 IP because that's not unheard of in gaming. Where they,
I think I wouldn't be at all surprised to see them do that. But the thing that was slightly worrying for me with that interview with Phil Spencer was when they were saying about original IPs, and he got quite cagey at that point. And he was saying, he said, you have to understand these things take time. And, if you're in a situation where, he's taken over and they're in transition, they may not have laid the groundwork to have games in the process of being made that will be coming on stream now. If you look at the PlayStation, they've had those games on stream for some time. The games, you can't just click your fingers and produce a game, which is pretty much what he said.
No.
But that suggests to me that maybe, and I hope not, but maybe they've not got a lot coming this year. And that would be quite worrying.
I think they're going to have a couple of big things up their sleeve, but I think you're right. Overall, it's still going to be not much better than 2016.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think there was enough in his body language to suggest that they haven't really got as much up their sleeve as, people might hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to bank on a couple of big sellers that are new IPs for the Scorpio. They're going to drop the Game Pass and new hardware, and they're going to hope for the best.
I mean, he was asked directly about Cuphead, wasn't he? And he didn't even give a release date for that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been delayed how many times?
Yeah.
I want to see that game. That game looks interesting. I would play that. Yeah.
It's a shame because Scalebound. I know I don't want to keep harping on about Scalebound, but Scalebound was something that would have kept them bubbling over. Turning over for the next few months or whatever. Because due to come out relatively soon, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's one of those ones where they know they had nothing coming. They know in comparison to the competition they have stuff all, and it's one of those ones that yes, it didn't make sense as a business perspective.
Yeah.
Like it's going to lose money, in the long run in development, but they had to make it happen. They had to make it happen, like for the fan base to keep them engaged. It's just one of those things you have to take a loss on sometimes, Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see if that game turns up on even on the Switch or PS4. It would be funny if it did.
It depends on whether they still have the.
Well, Microsoft don't own that studio, do they? And I don't think they own the IP. Wasn't it they licensed out to get them developing this game for the Xbox? But considering they've cancelled it, obviously they've broken ties. I don't think they own the IP.
They don't. They don't own the IP.
Someone could swoop in, Sony could come and hey, let's finish this.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
Kick in the teeth. I'd be taking every opportunity to kick Microsoft in the teeth if I was Sony.
If I was Microsoft and I was ditching that, I'd have given them a payoff and an agreement. You're not selling this to anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure something probably like that happened. Like you're burying this, that's it, because they'd probably be wary of things like this happening.
Oh, that would look so bad. I mean, that would look terrible.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, it's standard practice in UK to when you sign contracts, don't go and work for your competitors or don't talk to so and so for 6 months to a year. So I'm sure it happens in the console industry as well.
And Microsoft do fuck up occasionally, but I would be astounded if they fucked up in that way. That would be that wow. They might as well take a gun to themselves, frankly, if they let that happen.
Wouldn't. I mean, they're pretty astute in a lot of areas. They've got a lot of people working for them. It's.
I just think that this is still them suffering from the launch. I think that they've had to retool everything. They've had to start from scratch almost.
Well, sometimes you gamble and it doesn't pay off. It's like anything, isn't it? They weren't. I mean, Sony haven't won every console generation. Microsoft are the same.
Yeah,
they'll come back though.
Oh, they will.
They'll come back because they've got a lot of smart people working for them.
This is what I don't understand about when people say, "Oh, Microsoft are over; it's dead." They've had a fallow period.
It's just bullshit. You're talking about a company that employs 100,000 people. It's a massive company with a lot of capital.
If they want to save it, they will, because they have the money to throw at it.
Yeah, basically, whether unless something unbelievable happens, like aliens land on Redmond or something, the only people who are going to decide if the Xbox stops being made are Microsoft. They will decide whether they think it's viable from a business perspective or not. And I still think that their overriding idea, and I think this goes right back to the original Xbox, is that they want to get consoles, or well, not consoles necessarily, but they want to get Windows or some form of Windows everywhere.
Yeah. That's what Bill Gates said. His vision, wasn't it? Desktop computer in every home. So it's almost like it's an upgrade of that idea. So you get Windows in every home, just in some form. Whether it's through a box or whether it's through other means.
And you're getting Windows apps on the Xbox now. It's a long-term strategy that they've had in place for what? The best part of a decade.
Well, they would have had a marketing strategy, like you say, set in place for a long time, a roadmap of sort of success, and they gambled a lot of money to enter the console business. So I don't expect them to exit it anytime soon.
No,
no.
Unlike a certain other company we could mention.
Yeah,
I think. Sorry, go on, Grant.
No, I think we're running sort of over time. I was just going to say, we're an hour and 12 minutes so far, but
yes, I'm watching my edit time tick into the red.
We might want to look at wrapping it up soon. That's
yeah. Just can we before we end it though? Can I just ask you one question? Given that we're talking about the Switch launch, or we were until I went off on a rant about Microsoft. Where do you see? We've got the sales for this weekend. Where do you see the Switch in 3-5 years' time?
Dead. Next question.
Yeah.
5 years. Yeah, I see the Switch is 100% dead in 5 years because it hasn't got the hardware legs.
No, absolutely.
Exactly.
Okay, make it 2 then. What do you think about 2?
I'd see version 2 of the Switch coming. I could quite easily see them being here's Switch 2, here's Switch 3, here's Switch 4.
Yeah.
Backwards and forwards compatible.
And interestingly enough, I would say go and watch Ben Heck's video, Joe, because he suggests that the system is designed to be easily upgradable, which is very interesting.
I've heard other people suggesting that as well. And
the SCD.
Yeah. Well, there's that as well. Yeah, but
to get back to your question though, Joe, if in 2 years' time, if the Switch is ticking along with what we're seeing this year in 2017, we're getting one cool game at the start of the year, we're getting one cool game at the end of the year, we'll get a trickle of decent titles in through the middle of the year. If this carries on into the next year and the year after that, it's dead.
Yeah. If people get bored, they'll walk away.
Yeah, it might be a cool handheld. I think it's a cool handheld. I want to buy one.
Yeah, I do.
And I'm interested and I'm kind of curious at the same time, but I know I'd play probably an hour of Zelda and it's not my thing, and then I have to wait 6 months until I have something to play.
Well, the biggest problem...
And
sorry, go on.
People aren't stupid. They're going to see that, And I think at the moment, with the initial launch window, we're seeing the pre-orders, we're seeing the diehards and the fanboys pick up their systems. And like we saw with the Wii U, after the first quarter, it's going to bottom out completely, and Nintendo are going to be having to throw everything they can at it to try and save the system. They're going to have to give everybody else in the rest of the market hope. What is coming? Where are the third-party titles? Give us reasons to buy your system. I think that's where we're going to be in 3 months, and in the long term, if they can't resolve that, it's going to be dead.
Yep.
Hasn't this always been the same argument with Nintendo consoles, that they don't release enough games?
Yeah, it's the same with Wii U.
Yeah, it was the same with the N64. I remember people saying, well, why are they going to release any fucking games for it? But it was like 2 or 3 decent games a year.
Yeah.
They seem to have this policy where they deliberately hold games back. And I don't think it works anymore. I think gamers don't like that.
Well, they got very strong competition.
Back, though, because they have to hold games back. Because they're operating on only their titles. Like, they can't go, bang, here's like majority of our IPs in the first half or the second half of the year. They have to space it out because they've got no third-party support.
No.
You know, they're in a better position than Microsoft and Sony with their first-party IPs.
Yeah.
They need third-party support to complement it, though. You can't sell one without the other. You know, there's just not enough. They haven't got enough to survive on their IPs alone, and we know that, and they proved that with the Wii U.
Well,
yeah, but don't worry, because we're getting the PS3 version of Skyrim coming soon.
The point is they're not going to win over the mass market with their IPs alone, with 2 or 3 of them a year.
How about Nintendo coming out
and
with
it
a
remains
Game
to be
Pass?
seen whether or not. Oh my god! It remains to be seen whether or not their hardware is even capable of running the majority of third-party titles, which is the real concern. Because it's not even a question of, well, go out and get it. It's a question of whether it's even capable.
But this is the thing, you see, because it can't run the full version of FIFA. It's running the bloody mobile version or whatever it is. What does that tell you?
It's just not capable. Yeah. It just isn't.
What we're going to see is a very small handful of recognizable third-party IPs hit the system. Then we're going to see a lot of third-party developers developing very specific titles for the Switch, and then we're going to have the Nintendo IPs. But the question is that enough to sell the Switch?
Yeah, and the third parties will dry up if it's not selling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're just going to get, and it could be home to a lot of indie titles because it's not very powerful, and they might find a natural home on the system as a result. But that's pretty much all it's got for the rest of the year until some major IPs are announced. The people are going to be playing indie games, basically.
Yeah, it's going to go one way or the other really quick, I think, like really quick in the space of a couple of months. We're going to see the sales continue to tick over pretty decently. Then we're going to hear more third-party support, or we're going to see the sales slump. And then for the following months, we're going to see third-party support just vanishing. That'll be it. That'll be its life in a nutshell, and it'll happen real quick after the first quarter, I think.
My concern here as well is that the natural market for them, if you like, the family market, which you would usually expect them to sell to. The DS, people bought it for their kids, and that's Nintendo's always managed to sell into the home market in that way. They've managed to sell to parents buying stuff for their kids. Well, I don't think the Switch is kid friendly. Never mind all
it's interesting because
the
you're not the first person to say that.
Never mind the stuff about you putting on the rails or whatever and put them on the wrong way around and stuff like that. Just the faffiness of it, it's kids aren't going to be wanting to faff about with stuff like that. They just want to pick something up and play a game. My kid said to me, and I thought this was telling when I said about you can play it on the move, and he said, well, I got my iPad for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're not going to just desire one and go out and buy one, because it's a concept that probably can't necessarily be grasped by a child. Like it's this modular hybrid. The parents will have to be the ones that go out and get it for Christmas and stuff. But just interesting enough, like when you talk about the 3DS, is there going to be another dedicated handheld, which I did a video on? But I think it would be wise of Nintendo to let the 3DS just ride off into the sunset. Phase out the dedicated handheld and bring all that dedicated handheld experiences to the Switch.
I think they have to.
They need that bump. They need that buffer and that bump.
I think you're
titles.
right. I mean, I was looking at buying a 3DS, I think I mentioned recently, but there's a couple of things that are stopping me. One is I think it's too expensive still.
Yeah.
And the second is
it's almost done.
There's no charger with it.
Yeah.
I mean, come on,
Yeah,
it's
I know.
It is almost done as well because of the Switch. Because despite what Nintendo say, the Switch is a handheld primarily, and it's not powerful enough to compete with the Xbox and PS4.
Well, weren't they saying they weren't going to discontinue the Wii U about a month before they discontinued the Wii U?
Jesus. Well,
in their defense, they said support, so you could take that as like they're going to give it software and titles. But when you discontinue a console, in our view and sight, it doesn't look like it's worrying. It doesn't look like it's going to get support.
Well, the first company I know that have basically got a console that's not selling and yet they won't bloody reduce the price on it. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me how they could have boosted the sales of the Wii U, but they refused to discount it below a certain figure.
Yeah, what did Microsoft do as soon as their console was struggling?
Yeah,
they sold it below cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did it below cost for like 3 months, and they're like, "Guess what, guys? We've reduced it by $50 to $100 again. Go pick one up." And they did that even though they were losing money, and they said it's a special time offer for this month. Go get one.
But in fairness to Microsoft and Sony, what they do is they work out how to reduce the manufacturing cost by making a slimmer model. And Nintendo never do that, do they? They just have one model of the machine, like the Wii U. And
apart from the
and that's it.
Apart from the DS, which how many different versions were there of that?
Well, the DS is an exception, but their home consoles, they stay the same.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Pretty much. Yeah, unless the SCD is something that's going to be a reality, but that's another subject. So. We probably talked it.
Let's wrap it up before we touch on that.
We'll be going here all night. I need some sleep. I'm up at 6.
Okay, let's wrap it up then.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, well, thank you for listening to episode 11 of the Average Gamer podcast. As usual, we are all available on social media, and there'll be links in the video description below. And in the meantime, we'll see you in the next podcast. Bye for now.
Sayonara.